Hello and welcome into the Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of Big Ten Network, and we are back dropping new episodes of the Take 10 podcast.
Take a look, listen, and enjoy. Look at here.
With the catch, the finish! Oh, my goodness! What a catch! Energy, enthusiasm. It's picked off! It's selfish! Brilliant!
He's still going! Touchdown!
This episode features Malcolm Hill of Illinois. He's our first guest back really this summer since we went on a hiatus, kind of unplanned, nothing really behind it other than it was summer, nothing much going on in the Big Ten. We took a break for a month or two, but now we're back to drop new episodes. Hope to continue to do so as we move along and football season fast approaches. So we got Malcolm Hill on this episode, like I said at the top, former Illinois star, third all-time leading scorer at Illinois, and a guy who is getting an opportunity with the New Orleans Pelicans in their summer league coming up. I believe this weekend or early next week is when they start hooping. So definitely be watching, and he will fill us in more about that opportunity. We're also welcoming back Harold Shelton to the show. He is always on pretty much every episode of the Take 10 podcast nowadays. We're going to catch up, kind of talk all things summer that happened in the Big Ten. A lot of news, really, especially with the pushback deadlines of the NBA draft, and we get to see where guys ended up from the Big Ten and the NBA last week. Big news on football recruiting, especially with Ohio State, and we got the football season coming up real quick. So a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on, and we'll chop up with H like we normally do. We'll get to Malcolm Hill first, like I said, and that interview starts right now. All right, I'm very pleased to be joined by Malcolm Hill, former All-Big Ten basketball player at Illinois, the third all-time leading scorer at Illinois, all-time great. Malcolm, it's great to see you, man. Back in the old days, we were running around at U of I. How you been? What's going on?
Things have been good, bro. No, it's good seeing you too. Good talking to you. I'm a different guy from college, that's for sure. Things have been great personally, just day by day, being able to get a routine and consistently follow through and add on to it day by day. Over the past year, I've been doing that, and it's carried me a long way. So nothing but blessed, man.
Yeah, it's great to hear. And just catch us up if you could, especially for Illinois fans watching and listening who maybe saw you for the last time in the TBT in summer 2020, followed your stops along the way, but maybe haven't kept up with each and every stop. Take us through your pro career, where you've been, and what's ahead.
Yeah, so far I've been to the Philippines, Germany, played in Kazakhstan, and just this past year I was in Israel. The Philippines and Germany was my rookie year, and I've also done summer league with the Jazz and the Thunder. This past year in Israel over there, that was a good year. Able to learn a lot of things and just experience a lot of, just experiencing the culture in Israel and all the other places. I've been able to learn a lot of things and grow, because being in all those different countries, there's a lot of different things that make not only me, but a lot of overseas players uncomfortable. One small example would be like the language barrier. Instead of seeing that as a problem, I took like the different route, and this is me growing along the way, because in college you're able to be like in a shell, because people kind of like praise you for anything, and overseas they don't really care. So it's either you can like fit in or it can suck. So you can learn different languages or just learn different cultures, try new things. Because in my rookie year, I was like in the house a lot, not really doing much, playing my video games. And over the years, I've been growing to try different foods, learn a little bit of the language, and pick up new interests, such as like reading books, listening to a lot of podcasts, and just trying new things. So that's kind of my situation, how I've been living life ever since college, in like one small take right there.
Yeah, and That's kind of the beauty of overseas basketball, right? You get a lot of new experiences. I love hearing overseas basketball stories. A lot of guys I have on have played overseas. So I definitely want to get into that in just a moment. But last time I checked, you have some exciting opportunities ahead of you. I want to talk about that first. Fill us in on what's coming up for you as far as the immediate next chapter in your hoop career.
Yeah, so the very next thing I have going on is Summer League. I'll be playing with the Pelicans. So I'll be flying out for that tomorrow. And first game is August 9th. Over the time, we're going to have like a little mini training camp, get some practices in and stuff like that. I'm sure just learning plays and stuff, getting ready so we can be prepared heading there. So that's what's next. That's what's next for me as far as playing wise.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And when this comes out, that'll be right around when Summer League is starting up. So people listening, definitely catch Malcolm and the Pelicans hooping in Summer League. Are you in Vegas, Salt Lake, Orlando? Where do they have you?
I'll be playing in Vegas this year.
With Summer League being canceled last year, obviously guys were denied some of their opportunities that they might have otherwise had. What have you learned? You said you played in previous Summer Leagues. What have you learned that maybe prepared you for this particular opportunity now with the Pelicans?
I would say the one thing I learned is whenever you have a goal, make sure it's intrinsic, because I think without the goals that I had set for myself before the year, before I had the opportunity, I set myself some goals before then. And throughout the course of the year, there were good days, there were bad days, there were even days. But for myself, I made sure to stick with it. And I dealt with some tough times. A small example was I didn't play for a month. And that's kind of common for a lot of overseas guys. They deal with that type of adversity. But the biggest thing is how you respond to it and what are you doing to better yourself every day, no matter what the situation or circumstance. And it was tough, I'm not going to lie. And there were times where I felt like I'm wasting my time with this. But when I got the opportunity after the season, that kind of shows, and I would like to be a walking testament of what hard work and patience looks like. Because when you work hard and you're patient and you're doing it for yourself, all intrinsic motivations, you never know what type of opportunity you get. I didn't know I'd have that opportunity when I wrote down those goals. As a matter of fact, I had 0 points back-to-back games. Then I wrote that goal down. Then I wrote my goals down for what I wanted for myself. And then I got this opportunity. So is this the ultimate goal? Not at all. This is like a small reward for setting a high goal and sticking with it. So that's probably the one thing that I learned from myself is whenever I have a tough day, just keep going. Because when I had tough days beforehand in the past, when I kept going, good things ended up happening. So it's kind of like a law of balance. Every good, there's a bad. For every bad, there's a good. So when either or happens, stay even and stay even,
Yeah, very well said. And we're excited to see, what you can do with this next opportunity. And just backpedaling a little bit, because I did mention how I enjoy these overseas stories probably as much as anyone. Was there any moment or instance from any of your stops where it was kind of like a, welcome to overseas ball moment? I know you mentioned the language barrier. That's an obvious one, but like I've heard stories. I think it was Stephen Bardo saying fans would throw coins at him. I've heard stories refs just like, leave the floor in the middle of the game or teams don't show up. Anything happen in any of your various stops?
The coin throwing and stuff, I kind of experienced that a little bit when we played a team in Italy. So that was like a visit. That was like a hello, welcome to our country. Like, this is what we got for you type of deal. I've seen like fireworks in stadiums, like it's a soccer match. Seen that, but I would say my most interesting experience over the course of the season was playing basketball in Kazakhstan, because that's a culture that you can't really get ready for until you lived it and experienced it. What made it different and unique was they spoke Russian, very few English, and it gets really cold. See, your idea cold and a lot of people's idea is cold. And even my idea was cold. I thought it was cold because, being in Chicago and Champaign, we experienced some things. There's no experience like Kazakhstan. Their weather is like, it touched -40 when I was there, -40 degrees. People don't even know what that looks like. The snow gets to about 8 feet high. And just getting and it was like that for me for about 6 months. On top of the fact that in my living situation, it took like 15, no, I wouldn't say 15. It took like 10 minutes for me to walk to take out the trash every time. So being that cold and stuff, that was kind of like this is overseas basketball. This isn't what
I'm sure, I'm sure enduring it in the moment was tough, but that's kind of the struggle you were talking about, right? That leads to better opportunities and playing in the basketball wilderness and you eventually potentially playing in the league. That would be quite the story. I wonder how many guys playing in the Kazakhstan have even made it that far. So that's an exciting prospect for sure.
Oh yeah, it's exciting for sure, bro.
Well, we're looking forward to watching, like I said. Maybe a more serious question about your overseas experience. I think I saw when you were in Israel, the season had to be cut short, right? Because of the conflict with Palestine going on. Didn't those events intersect and maybe, cost you part of a season for the second year in a row after COVID? I'm sure disrupted some part of your career the year before.
Yeah, it put a halt to the season, and it was tough because I had a good routine going out there, and our team had an opportunity to make the playoffs and do something. But it's pretty cool to say I experienced it. I felt pretty safe for the most part, because I'm sure everybody saw the news and my family, they're like, "Oh my goodness, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Because for them, it's something that they've experienced before. So they gave the reassurance and stuff like that, you'll be fine. And probably the closest thing I had to violence was hearing a wind in the air. That was crazy. I was it sounded like an airplane flying by, but for the most part, being over there and experiencing it, so I could write a book about that. You know what I mean? And just telling my friends and family, that it wasn't as bad as what the news made it seem. I was happy to tell them that, and also happy to let them know Israel's a really good country. It's not all scary and stuff, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're one of the few prominent Illini that have played in Israel, and Brian Randall played there for a while, I believe. Tal Brody was there for a long time. So there's a lot of success stories playing in Israel, and some of those cities I've seen, like Tel Aviv looks amazing. What city were you in out there when you played?
I was in Jerusalem when I was playing, and I was in Tel Aviv a lot because over there in Israel, the funny thing with them over there is they think an hour car ride is very long, dreadful, because
Right.
the country's kind of small. The farthest place you can drive is about 4 hours. It's that small. So I was about 15, 20 minutes away from every city, and there's a lot of beaches, a lot of really good food. And people in different cities, they spoke English very well over there in different parts. So it was really fun to be able to explore that area and learn and explore the culture and, experience, visit a lot of the cool places that you can visit.
Definitely. And we talked about, Champaign a little bit, especially before we hopped on, but this is kind of a nice segue into my next question. Especially going back to your Illinois days. I saw you were at a wedding this past weekend. One of my fellow Champaign native, Michael Finke, was getting married. How was that, getting back, seeing one of your old teammates, getting back in town? I assume it had to be nice, one, just to feel a little bit of normalcy, and then see some old brothers.
Yeah, it was such an awesome time being there because I'm a very simple guy and I kind of think different. Not only was it great to see my friend get married, especially because we met when I was a freshman and he was a senior in high school. So we go way back, and here we are, not only seeing him get married, but being able to see all the other people that came together, being able to see all my college teammates, some of his old friends from the city, some of my old friends from college that came to the wedding. Like, it was just awesome to experience that moment with people, and it was just all love, it bringing back all the old memories, talking about the experiences in practice, talking about all the old games, and just catching up with everybody, seeing how they're doing in life. Few of us don't play basketball anymore. So just seeing how they, live in the real world, seeing how they're dealing with the identity change from basketball player to, a working person, working citizen, just moving around. It's great just catching up and hearing everybody's experience throughout the years that we haven't been together. So it was awesome catching up with everybody for sure.
Yeah, I know you at least caught up with some of those dudes last summer. We mentioned briefly the TBT, the basketball tournament. You guys had a pretty good run. It was a great relief to see sports back. That was one of the first sporting events that came back that in summer 2020. And then we lost you this year on the House of Pain team because you have this exciting opportunity like we talked about. We needed you, on the House of Pain. I was watching. They got bounced in the first round. I don't know if you watched or not, but that was rough, man. We needed you out there.
Yeah, it was tough. It was just unfortunate because BP had just one of those games, it happens. Just as a basketball player, just understanding if it was a 7-game series or a 5-game series, even a 3-game series, I'm sure we won, but they played one of their better games and we as a collective that game didn't. So just how it happens sometimes. I really wish I could have been out there. As you guys saw last year, I was very passionate being out there. I would have been probably even more passionate. So I'm sure I could have helped in a lot of ways, but we'll see how there's always a next year for it, for sure. So can learn from it and move.
Yeah, no, and it was just cool for me to see. I think Rayvonte balling out. He looked like he
was killing.
Right. Nana stepping out and hitting some threes. Nana Egwu. Just guys that, we saw every day back at U of I. It was just fun to see them balling out. So even despite the loss, like you said, hopefully they're back in future years. You guys can make a run at that 1 or 2 million, whatever the prize is. How many of those guys you keep in touch with regularly? Any of them? I know Finky obviously is probably near the top of the list, but what kind of contact do you keep up with, either the players, Coach Gross, or anyone like that?
I would say I keep up with them. I'll say often and every now and then with everybody, because life can be very hectic, with the schedule that we have with basketball or with anything else. So quite often, just a, hey, how you doing? How are things? How can I help type of deal with a lot of people. The one thing I will say is what I'm very grateful and honored to be a part of is, with the varsity Illini, Dion, he actually came up and talked with us, just letting us know, what the real treasure is with being an Illini, and just offering the opportunity to, whenever or if ever we need to get in touch with an alum or a donor or somebody who could help with anything, just let us know and we can get in contact with them. Just stuff like that, being offered that's not even having to do with TBT, but that he offered that for the whole basketball team, and just stuff like that, being able to add value. I think that was about probably the best thing for TBT. And that's kind of a cool way for me to keep in contact with not only just the basketball players, but the whole Illini Nation type.
Yeah, that's one of the things about college sports too that I think it's undersold when, people are talking about going to the G League or maybe discounting the college experience. That community is real, I think. And I talk to guys like you all the time who have similar stories. And, just with something like the G League or any of these other independent leagues, fans aren't coming to watch them after they're done in that league, packing a stadium like they did in Peoria to, cheer on guys who used to play. That's just wild to me. And you're right. The resources that last and the connections that last beyond are great. And then just a funny side note, I saw a couple weeks ago, I was in Indy for Big Ten football media day, and I saw Coach Ford in the lobby.
No way.
Coach Gross. Yeah, he had his Akron shirt on, and it was good to catch up. I was surprised he remembered me because I don't, I was hanging around, but
yeah,
that much. But it was good to see him too.
Yo, that's awesome, bro. I'm sure like you probably didn't even realize till after you got out of college like how powerful just from our experience going to Illinois really is.
Well, for sure. And one thing that I've kind of tried to tell coworkers at Big Ten Network, especially when I was first working there and Illinois basketball and football were more down near the bottom of the Big Ten, is that, you know, this fan base is hungry for success, for a winner. And then you saw at the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis in March, that championship game, and most of that weekend was like for the whatever 8,000 fans they let in, it was probably 90% Illinois fans in that crowd. And, you know, they made a lot of noise and I think helped that team a lot play some of the best basketball that they played all season. So, you know, I'm just trying to tell people, colleagues that maybe went to other Big Ten schools or friends that went to other Big Ten schools, that, you know, the fan base is large and it's hungry. And I know you've seen it firsthand.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you know, call it what you want. Some people call it pressure, some people call it hunger, but just seeing from the core of it, we're just so used to having a high standard for our program that, you know, I think it's good and healthy because I mean, we saw what that led us to potentially this year with how good of a team we built up from a hungry and supportive fan base.
Definitely. And I do want to talk about this year's team. We're going to get to your career to wrap up, but just staying on the subject of this year's team and maybe the last couple of years when things started to take off again, how did you consume those games? Did you at all? Do you know players from maybe hosting them on visits? How do you just kind of consume Illinois basketball as an alum, especially now that they are on the national stage again?
Yeah. Well, it's easy for me to make bets with my teammates that are, you know, went to different colleges whenever they come across each other, you know, make those friendly type of wagers and know that we're going to win. But how do I watch the games? Being overseas is tough, obviously, the time difference. So I was able to watch the highlights, and it's just awesome to see just the chemistry and just the energy. You know, now that we're winning, seeing us win and just the energies flowing from game to game, and then the confidence, being able to win at the end of games. You know, it's just awesome to see, not only, you know, from an alum perspective, but for each one of them individually, because I'm sure they're not even aware of like how big and how much they're setting themselves up for themselves individually for the future, you know, with basketball and without basketball. So that was awesome to see. Of course, wanted them to make a better run in the tournament, but just thinking about it realistically, that's the first time that our program has been there in how long? And that's the first time we were like considered and talked about as one of the best teams in the country. That's tough, you know, when you've never been in that situation. It's a brand new experience. It's easy to sit back in a fan and be like, how are they not playing their best basketball? But, you know, pressure is real and people deal with pressure in different ways. I'm not saying they were like nervous or anything, but just the reality of the situation was we were able to bounce back and saw the potential that we could build with the program. And I think we're going to be better from years on to come and get better players. And now that we know what it looks like, we're going to fight for that again and more. So it makes me really excited and happy, and, you know, excited and happy, and a lot of other words that I feel a lot of other ways I can't really put into words to be happy and anticipated to see like what we have to come in the future. Yeah. I said that really ugly just now.
Podcast game.
Hey, I need to step my podcast game up, bro.
I've had far more stumbles. I would not worry about it. Trust me, anyone who listens to this show knows I can at times. I do want to say though, like kind of sticking on that theme of pride that you had, seeing, not to, you know, linger on the TBT too much, but seeing like Kofi and Trent Frazier and the current team there watching, I think that's something that's kind of been missing until recently, is just like, you know, the generations all kind of blending together, and I see it with all you guys, and it's just kind of a cool thing that made me smile, you know, as a fellow alum. And I know you would have been there too if you could have been, but I don't know how you feel about that, but I just feel like the connection is tighter and it's more of a culture that you see at other places like Purdue and Michigan State, where it's a really tight bond. And I'm sure you guys agree that would be, you know, a great thing to aspire to.
That would be a really great thing. And for me personally, I love to keep that bridge connected because we have things to offer and value and experience that they can't really get until they get the experience to do that. So just to give them a heads up of what to come, how to deal with certain situations in the future whenever we talk to them. And seeing that support, like you said, them at the games, it's awesome. And it should be a close connection like that. And it's going to grow bigger and bigger because, life is tough. There's more to life than basketball. And after college, life can hit you really hard. We have that experience to share. So to keep that connection and, the things that we have to offer and speaking on a personal experience, the things I have to offer to the players on the basketball team and former Illini players on the team, love like I'm doing right now, getting connections with everybody, the older guys. I love to help everybody out and just give them advice on basketball and on other experiences in life and opportunities that they can have for themselves.
For sure. And I do not want to wrap up before we talk a little bit about your career at Illinois. A lot of great memories of your playing days, as we intro in the beginning. A lot of buckets to talk about. But one thing I do want to make sure to bring up is one that, you talked about the emotions of the game that maybe hit overwhelmingly so with you after senior night, I believe it was, against Michigan State. It's a big win for the team. Big win to keep NCAA tournament hopes alive, I remember. And it was on Big Ten Network because we had our interviewer there, John Crispin, I think it was, talking to you. And you just kind of broke down a little bit. And it was after you had a big game. And would you say that would be the highlight of your career at Illinois when you look back? Or when you think about special moments, are there other things that maybe stack up to that moment as well?
If it's not the highlight of my career, it's the highlight of my friends' careers because they laugh at me about that all the time. Seeing the fact that they can pull it up on YouTube anytime, pull me up crying. But no, that was definitely one of, if not my favorite moments at Illinois, because at that moment, it was like all in one instance, just the hard work and sacrifice that I gave for the university ever since I got there as a freshman. Just everything that I went through, from the good to the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, like it just hit me. And it was like, dang, it's over, as far as like being able to play in front of everybody. Because that's what I worked hard for. It's always awesome playing in front of the home crowd. And as you can see, Ayo did the same thing, gave a kiss on the court. I'm sure if he would have stayed for another 2 years, he would probably shed a tear just like I did. Nah, but that's like a prime example of like just the dedication and sacrifice, and also the rewarding feeling you get from the fans, the support that you get from them, and just knowing that it was over, like it touched, the feels were there. Even talking about it now, I'm getting myself back to that moment. Like playing for those fans are just amazing, and just being able to talk to them now after my career, just reminiscing on everything and talking with them about the experiences and like the stuff that they didn't know at the time of like practice, how that was, and just how my head was. It's awesome. Like I can go on for days on days just about what it meant for me to play for Illinois and like what it means for me today.
Yeah, and at the time, you went viral in a good way. Like that took off on social media, but I'm sure
in a good way. Depends on who you ask.
I was gonna say, I'm sure the immediate ramifications or the long-term ramifications didn't hit you about people being able to clown you the rest of your career, but they can't clown you too much, man. That was a sentimental moment. It's not, it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Hey, man, my friends are crazy. They don't care who I am. They don't see me like y'all see me, but no.
We all need friends like that, though, to keep us in check a little bit.
Yeah, it keeps us humble and grounded for sure.
All right. Malcolm, you've been very generous with your time. I know you got out of a workout recently, so I'm gonna let you go in just a second, but we got to talk, especially as a U of I guy myself, got to talk about your favorite couple of food spots before we jump off here. What are you missing most about Champaign that we would maybe get? I know I like DP Dough over by West Quad. I don't know where you were eating, but fill me in on what you liked.
See, I'm gonna say the local spots because the local spots deserve love, or the local spot deserve love. Spots, Cactus Grill, think that's on. Do you know where Cactus Grill at?
Oh yeah, on Neal Street. My brother is a huge Cactus Grill fan. For some reason, I feel like it didn't hit our generation the same as it did maybe a couple years younger, like you and current students. They swear by it, like the student athletes as well. I always see them posting about Cactus Grill.
Cactus is that spot, boy. It was one of those foods that hits every time.
It is good.
It's a great recovery food too if you're patient enough to keep it in the fridge after a fun night.
There you go.
But got Cactus Grill, Marianne's. What college student doesn't go to Marianne's though? Did you mess with Marianne's?
Of course. I mean, I'm a townie, so I went to Marianne's even before college. And then I was more of a Maze guy, like for Mexican food, but I did like Cactus Grill too. Maze was just really close by and I could walk over and get a burrito. It was good.
Yeah, what other spots did you like?
Well, like going back now, I always have to take coworkers to dinner or whatever. So we like Black Dog. Like everyone at work likes Black Dog. I like Seven Saints a lot too. Seven Saints is really good.
Seven Saints. Oh yeah, I did have that. Yeah, that place is good too. What was the go-to whenever what was the most consistent go-to? Like the one you were eating about 3 or 4 times a week?
Maze is probably the most consistent. DP Dough, like I said. Papa Del's is always classic. I feel like I'm missing 1 or 2 though. That's gonna drive me nuts. I'm gonna think of it when I hop off.
You know what? I say a dessert place that I was messing with was Insomnia.
Yep, Insomnia cookies.
I was at Insomnia a lot.
We have that here though. We have that in the city, so we can still get that.
Okay, see, that's the only Insomnia that I've ever been, local to.
I know one that's been a childhood or growing up, high school through college, and when I go back, Dos Reales. It's off campus.
Dos Reales.
Yeah, best Mexican food in Champaign. So
I'm gonna have to go to it now that you said it.
Off campus, man. It's North Prospect, right after you get off the highway. Best value, best Mexican food. Got to hit it up. So.
Oh, I have to. I love Mexican food.
Yeah.
One more time. What's it called?
Dos, like 2, dos, and then Reales. I don't speak Spanish, but I don't know. Is that
too good? That's what that means. Oh no, bueno means good.
Too real, maybe?
Could
it be too real? I don't know.
People
who took Spanish in high school are just laughing right now at us, but it's all good.
Aren't they right? I swear I'm gonna learn Spanish. I'm gonna learn Spanish one of these days. I know a lot of people who know multiple languages that didn't learn their first one till 40. So
really,
we got time.
I would love it. I regret, not trying to learn when I was a lot younger because I had a tough time picking up my high school subject, French. You've been in enough countries now that you probably have picked up a little bit of a handful of languages.
Yeah, I know a couple. Like I know Germany. German is a real tough language. I actually did try to learn that with Duolingo, and I couldn't. But Danke, thanks. I'm blanking on you, man. I'm blanking on you because I know a couple of Israeli words. I know a couple Serbian words. I actually do know this phrase, but I can't say it because it's something really bad, and I heard it a lot from a lot of my coaches.
Some you hear on the court, yeah, I got you.
Oh yeah, but yeah, there's been just having an ear for it, walking around in the city and asking, of course, what does that mean? You learn a lot of things for sure, but I need to learn another language. I don't know when I'll find the time, but
hopefully you learn some New Orleans slang coming up because we want you to get that opportunity down in the Big Easy. Looking forward to watching you, man. Appreciate you taking some time. We'll be tuned in Summer League. Bet on that for sure. I'm gonna catch you guys, and always love watching Summer League. You and Io going to the Bulls and our other Big Ten guys. It was a good draft, and love to see you undrafted free agents get a shot as well.
For sure, man. Thanks for taking the time to hit me up and give me the opportunity to talk on this platform. I had an awesome time, honestly.
Absolutely. It's all love, man. Appreciate you, and we will hopefully talk soon and be following your career for many years to come.
For sure. It's all love, like always, bro.
All right. Thanks to Malcolm once again for joining me. You'll probably tell in the discussion, we go back a ways to our days as students at Illinois. He's a couple of years younger than me, so real good rapport with him. Awesome to catch up with him and not talk to him or see him in a while, so hopefully that came through during the interview. And always love talking hoops, especially with guys who either played in Europe, overseas, or still grinding for the NBA opportunity. It's always fun to check in where guys are at, especially prominent players like Malcolm Hill. So shout out to him one more time. All right, like I said at the top of the show, we'll kick it over now to Harold Shelton, our manager of research at Big Ten Network. And Harold, like I quickly alluded to at the top, talks everything from Big Ten football to basketball, goes behind the numbers, is our stats guy at the network, and just some good casual conversation, especially if you've been unplugged, kind of like we were taking a break on the show. But if you're unplugged this summer, great place to catch up on some things you might have missed and just get some Big Ten sports back in your life. So let's let Harold take it away. It's our manager of research, and it starts right now.
All right, very, very excited to be rejoined by Harold Shelton, Big Ten Network manager of research. H, it's been a while. It's been too long since we chatted. My bad, but we are back. How you doing?
I'm good. You know, I get it. We got to step away, kind of enjoy the summer when we can. Definitely take some time to recharge and kind of get away from it so we can be at our best when it comes back.
Yeah, not that we're getting too many YouTube views, modest YouTube views, so I don't know if anyone would notice, but you did notice. I'm in a different setting here. What do you think of the new setup? No couch this time. I'm in my office chair in my living room.
It's an upgrade. I think, anytime you can have an office chair, it's a good thing. I've gotten used to the couch because we had done so many of these in that setting. So it was a little jarring when I first saw you, but no, I like it. I like the digs.
Appreciate that. And we're going to get another further upgrade soon. Not that, anyone will care too much outside of this call, but we will be in a revamped studio soon enough. The idea was always kind of to do this show from our own studio, or at least a studio at Big Ten Network that was outfitted for podcasts. COVID pushed those plans back, but it is back on track. So sometime this fall, H, we're going to get in there and it's going to be legit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Really looking forward to that.
All right, man. So we got a lot of catching up to do. I think it was end of May last time we hopped on. So 2 months or so, stuff that we missed. And it's been a lively summer. I think everything's just kind of catching up with itself since the COVID calendar is finally kind of unwinding. This is probably the last time that the NBA will be pushed this far into the summer. So we had the draft just recently. Things are proceeding normally in the football season. Like a year ago, we had no idea what was going on at this point. So first of all, before we even get into all that, because there's a lot, like I said, let's stick with our tradition of reminiscing on the guest of the week. Malcolm Hill was a decorated player at Illinois. Just had a great convo with him. What are some memories you had of Malcolm during his time? It was 2013 to 2017. So semi-recently here, kind of in the middle of your run at BTN.
Yeah, he was a guy who got a lot of buckets, but did it quietly. I feel like when you kind of go back and you think about some of the great scorers that we've had in this league, over the last, 5-10 years, he doesn't immediately come to mind. But like when you go back, you're like, yeah, I mean, this dude scored like 1,800 points. Like he's an all Big Ten type of player. But the way he was, his personality, his disposition, it was just always pretty calm and even keel. And so I remember when they beat Michigan on senior day, he was really, really emotional, and kudos to John Crispin for bringing that out of him too. But it was jarring to me because I'm like, whoa, like Malcolm Hill showed emotion, like you don't normally see that. And I think that's just one of the cool things about sports, the senior night, and just kind of seeing your career, kind of reach that culmination, and everyone you're just taking all of the moments in, and all of the practices and the locker rooms and the games, and you kind of see that come out of the people who are going through it. And so that definitely stuck with me.
Yeah, I know you weren't on the call, but that's a lot of what you just said encapsulates a lot of what Malcolm said about the moment. And you're right. He was maybe not the most prominent player of the decade, or not in that echelon because of the lack of success that those teams had. They never made the tournament. They were always kind of close, but just not good enough. I remember, I think it was his junior year, because his senior year, they had a lot of injuries and it was a tough season. But junior year, they were knocking on the door of the tournament. Or I'm sorry, his senior year, they were knocking on the door of the tournament, lost to Rutgers in Piscataway. And then it was his sophomore year when they were also knocking on the door and lost to Purdue. at Purdue at the end of the year. So there were 2 games really that could have swung that either way. Could have had 2 tournament appearances in his career. They just couldn't get it done as a team. Crazy though that a team with Kendrick Nunn, Ravonte Rice, Nana Egwu, a player like Malcolm Hill couldn't get through to the NCAA tournament. And I think that's what a lot of Illinois fans kind of use to look back on that era as a kind of a down era, because if you watch the TBT game, I believe it was 2 weeks ago almost now, when they lost in the first round. And really, it was only like half Illinois guys from that gross era. The other guys were kind of stragglers from other schools. And the sentiment on Twitter when they lost was like, all right, let's leave that era in the past. This is the Underwood era now. But there were some good players, some good dudes. And, it wasn't Ravonte Rice's fault they lost that game in the TBT. Malcolm Hill was unable to play because he's playing in the summer league with the Pelicans. Andres Feliz, who's an Underwood guy, obviously, had a visa issue and couldn't get in the country. So I think if they had those guys, they would have maybe gone farther, made it a little bit of a run. But it's interesting how those eras get kind of cast in the minds of fan bases when really 1 or 2 games could have swung it the other way.
Yeah, it's so true. And, I feel like, especially in college basketball, college sports period, it's such a bottom line business. So it's like, hey, did you get to the tournament? Or like if you were a super elite program where it's championship or bust, it's like, if you're Duke or Kentucky or whatever, it's like, oh, you didn't get to the Final Four. Oh, you didn't get to the championship. That's a lost season. And, it sucks for the players that are there that are really good, that, did all they could, and they kind of get wrapped up into the end result, negatively or positively. And when it's negative, like, it's something that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I don't think you'll find any Illinois fan that would have anything negative to say about Malcolm Hill. He's kind of one of those, All-American type dudes who is a fan favorite. But I do have respect for when the athlete who maybe never got the payoff at the school in terms of results still stays connected. And Malcolm kind of expressed this, like he wants to stay connected to the current team. He wants to kind of fill them in and future guys in about what he feels is special about that place. And I always respect that. Even if guys didn't have maybe on paper the best experience team-wise at a school. And you see it across the Big Ten. I talk to guys all the time on this show about people who have love for their school, even though it, maybe ended poorly or not how they wanted.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty about college sports and just college in general. Like, there's just always a soft spot for your alma mater. And, I know whenever we're on the bus tour or whatever, whenever that bus pulls into Michigan State, like, all the memories and stuff just start coming back. And like, I just think there's just something about, basically becoming an adult. And like, you remember so much of your time from those 4 or 5 years, definitely 5 for me, but 4 or 5 years, like when you're in college and all of it starts to come back, you just feeling a special emotional attachment. And so it's cool to hear, guys like Malcolm, still wanting to reach out, even though they're, a few years removed.
I don't know if you watch TBT at all, but with the fans back this year, it's crazy to me still how fans will pay money to go in and watch alumni of their team, just kind of a random group, basically a glorified pickup game, even though ESPN does a great job putting this event on. Like, that to me is something that I would put as exhibit A in a PowerPoint of why college sports really aren't going anywhere for a while. And in the foreseeable future, because like, what other type of sporting league can do that? Nobody's doing that with G League. Nobody's doing that with overseas basketball, to that degree. Like, the connection there is wild. You saw Boeheim's Army, like they had Syracuse fans in Dayton or wherever that was cheering. Wichita State had a crazy crowd reaction. It looked packed in that facility when they had a buzzer beater. I think it was Fran Camp hit a buzzer beater. Illinois had a lot of fans that, would have, I'm sure, had a great atmosphere with the Bradley fans there at the Civic Center in Peoria. So it's just one of those things that is really cool, I think, about college sports, about how those ties kind of last. And we saw Purdue fans fired up to play Carmen's Crew for the Ohio State alumni. I love it, especially in the summer when you really need to kind of be reminded of what you're missing during the sports calendar with college being out of season,
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny you mentioned Boeheim's Army first, because, there are times where, I get busy with the summer, or, families in town, or we're out doing something. And, I'm on Twitter, and a guy I used to work with is a huge Syracuse guy. and he's tweeting all the time about Boeheim's Army and how, how he follows that team and has followed them for years, and just how fired up he is to watch them play. And it just, again, to your point, it just goes to show, like, if you grew up rooting for somebody or you went to that school for a certain amount of years, like, there's just that emotional attachment whenever you see those colors or see that name or see, the players who wore that jersey, and you just kind of it gives you a reason to just get lost into the game.
Yeah, it's like, dude, it's not a real team, but it is. Like, it's it's those guys you watched, and even if you throw in a random dude, like Illinois fans kind of adopted Mike Dahm. I remember when he went off for them in the 2020 TBT, and it kind of became an honorary degree type thing. So it's just one of those fun things about college sports that I enjoy. All right, talking real sports now. H, we got to catch up. First of all, you mentioned the tour. As you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you and I are not on the tour. We missed another year. No bus tour last year. No bus this year. There is a tamped down version of the tour where the same three guys we know every year, Dave Revson, Jared Inaro, and Howard Griffith, are going to practices, getting that FaceTime with the coaches, and Joshua Perry, our guy, is joining them as well. So, H, we got to get there in 2022 when the bus is back. I think we all understand, during a COVID season, why a bus packed with a bunch of people, front to back is maybe not the best COVID-friendly process. So I think we can handle sitting out another year.
Yeah, I completely understand the decision of not having the bus. It does feel weird not being out there this time of year, especially knowing that the tour is going on. But we'll make do. We still got work to do from our offices or from our houses, and just kind of continuing from last year. But yeah, you're right. 2022. We definitely need to get back.
It's nice seeing some of these events come back. I know you weren't able to make it to media day, but some of these events that we're used to being on the calendar, getting back out there, enjoying some of the upside of our jobs again. So when we were in Indy is when the news popped off a couple weeks ago about college football realignment. And to a degree, the realignment narrative and story that is out there, and when I say narrative, it's like how it's framed by college football media. If you listen to this podcast, you know that I just like sometimes roll my eyes at the greater college football media horde. But they phrase it as like this exciting thing, and this is our Christmas, our best days on the calendar. We get the most clicks through these types of events unfolding, and it's exciting when news breaks like that, and new possibilities kind of unfold. But at the same time, I feel like for a lot more people, it's not that exciting about the uncertainty that they might face, right? Like, I'm sure Kansas State fans, Iowa State fans, anyone in the Big 12 really, many more millions of people than who would follow those two schools, Texas and Oklahoma, they're probably feeling a lot worse right now than, it's maybe framed in the college football media landscape. Like, I just kind of get queasy when I hear all these stories, just because I feel bad for the fans who might be on the other end of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I agree with you on the college football media at large. The general point of, being so excited about this news. Now, I will say I have seen some articles that have said, like, I don't know if this is necessarily a good thing for college football. Like, yeah, we could talk about, the SEC getting stronger and super conferences and all that, but that's not necessarily a great thing for the sport itself. And, to your point, like West Virginia just joined the Big 12 not too long ago. Like, what happens with them? And, Oklahoma State loses their, in-state rival to another league. Like, where, usually they're in lockstep. So what happens with them? TCU just came over, like, do they have to go back to a lower league? Do they, continue to try to stay with the other Big 12 schools and, try to figure something out there? Like, what happens with them and Baylor and Texas Tech? And, do they add a Houston or SMU to try to, build the Texas brand part back to replace the Longhorns? I'm not really sure. And, it does, I feel really bad for the schools that haven't had a ton of tradition in either of the two big sports. Like, I'm sure Kansas will probably be fine because of their basketball program. But, a school like Iowa State, who's had some success in both, or Kansas State, some success in both, like what happens with those schools?
Yeah, it's a good point. And it's a delicate balance, right? Like, I think we all want more revenue for our programs. I mean, Big Ten Network had that in mind when it was created, and it's been wildly successful. And you want to put your schools in the best position to succeed. And, we're not going to fire off any takes about who the Big Ten should scoop up or if they should stand pat or anything, like, just not really our job. But I think it's a delicate balance just overall in college sports, right? Because we saw this play out with the Super League idea in Europe, right? With their soccer teams, and fans rebelled against it. The fans of those lower league teams basically said, we're not having this. We don't care, how lucrative it is for you. It would ruin the sport. I don't know how closely those parallels are with college football. I've seen some articles written about it where it makes that comparison. So I don't know. It's just a delicate balance of maximizing your revenue and the power of your conference. And I think everyone knows the Big Ten are kind of natural rivals of the SEC. We're always competing, whether that's, in the wallet or on the basketball court, football field, anything really. Like that's what you want. Competition's good. So it's interesting just kind of sit back and watch it from the perspective of a stakeholder in another very powerful conference, and seeing the SEC make those moves.
Yeah. And you wonder, like, okay, is there going to be a domino effect since, the SEC added, our other leagues going to add, and, the natural thing is, okay, yeah, sure. So the Big Ten is going to try to get these people, and the ACC is going to try to get these people, but at the same time, you wonder, is it worth it to add any of these teams? And so I think standing pat could be a realistic possibility, and I'm fine with that. I do think it's interesting how, there was a lot of momentum for the 12-team playoff, and, everything was kind of going forward with that. And then once this move happened, people were kind of like, I don't know if we should be doing this now. Like, was this just an SEC money grab, adding Texas, Oklahoma, and then try to get as many teams from that league into this playoff as possible? So I'll be curious to see, how going forward, do they make any changes? Do they say now you can only have so many teams from the conference, from one conference get in? Like there's a lot of dominoes, I think, still at play from this move.
Yeah. Last point here on this. And I think the reason why college basketball, regular season in college basketball, it has, in my eyes, a little more buzz around it, maybe because of the school I went to, right, with Illinois having more relevance. But I think it's maybe the illusion of being in the dance, right? The ability to have a shot. Not saying that football's ever or should go to 64, but I've been pining for expansion on this show with you forever. I hope these moves don't get in the way of whatever the 12-team solution was that might pop up in a few years. But I just think college sports are better off when more teams have a seat at the table. More fan bases are engaged longer. I think right now with the 4-team setup, it's just not appealing to a wide audience. I think everyone still is going to have a good time on Saturday. Everyone at all these schools, 80 to 100 schools across the country. It's the main thing to do in that college town. It's a fun time. Keep that going as long as you can. But I think college basketball has done a really good job, keeping 30 to 40 teams and their fan base is interested because they can get at large bids to the NCAA tournament. And even though the results aren't that different, like if you look at the winners of college basketball and March Madness, a lot of it is still the blue buds, right? It's still the Alabamas, Clemson's, Ohio States of college basketball. But like I said, the illusion of being in the dance, I think, helps the sport overall. I don't know how you feel about that, but again, it's just more pro expansion talk for me.
So I could see both sides of the coin on that. And I know for a long time, there's the argument of college basketball being a 1-month sport and trying to fight, the negativity from that. It's all people don't care about, the sport until the tournament starts, and then people watch for 3 weeks. And I don't think there's any question it's the greatest sporting event, at least to me. that we have. And that's including, college football playoff, that's including NBA finals, that's including, for Super Bowl for me, like I'll take the tournament over all of those. But there is this, the stigma that it's a 1 month sport. And college football, they try to say, oh, well, if you have it only be 4 teams, then, it makes the regular season more important and all this and that. And it's like, well, is it though? I mean, conference championship games have basically been obsolete. Like no one cares about them anymore. Like you can lose your conference championship game and still make the playoff, which is like, how is that different than, the tournament? Like, how does that make the regular season matter? And so I really don't care about the regular season mattering. Like I'm with you in terms of having more teams, get a seat at the table, a bite at the apple, whatever analogy you want to use. I'm definitely fine with that. I think before the playoffs started, when it was just the BCS, which I didn't like, but there was more value in, hey, if you win a conference championship, that's a huge deal. Like if you go to the Rose Bowl, that's a huge deal. Now it's like, oh man, I didn't make the playoff. I guess I got to go to the Rose Bowl. Like that's the kind of stuff that I think has been missing from college football. And I think the playoff, the way it's been constructed and just keep getting the same teams over and over and over again, like for 7-8 years, like that's a problem.
Yeah. And like many things in this country, I don't think it should be this complicated. I think there are some pretty simple solutions out there, but when you have big time stakeholders in the mix, it's always going to be a little more dicey. So we'll see how it plays out. And, that doesn't tamper my anticipation for college football this season at all. I'm really excited. I think just because for me, college football was the sport that suffered most with COVID. It was just hard to suspend reality or, suspend disbelief is a better term while watching last season, just because so much of the sport and the enjoyment for me is wrapped up in the fans, the event, the pageantry of it, the college experience, right? So seeing that back this year is going to help me a lot. I think just get back into that mindset. And I think we've got some exciting times ahead with Big Ten football. We're kicking off Illinois and Nebraska in just about 3 weeks from today. That'll be a lot of fun. I think it'll be a good crowd there. Just a lot of intrigue around that game. Nebraska fans kind of on the edge of their seats to see what direction this program is going to go in. Illinois fans, I think, are cautiously optimistic with Bielema. It's just going to be a cool event to kick us off. I don't know if you've been seeing the countdown of Joshua Perry's top 30 players, JP 30 in the Big Ten, but it's kind of just getting me ready to go. The juice is flowing. How are you feeling just overall as we go in? Don't have to talk existentially anymore about the sport. We can kind of narrow it down to Big Ten as the month has arrived and we'll kick off.
Yeah, so I know usually when I start my preview packet, it's kind of a reminder of, the stuff that happened last year and what we're looking forward to this year. And you kind of forget, the stuff that happened because it's so far removed. And then when I start looking into this stuff again, it's like, oh yeah, this happened. Okay, that happened. Okay, this guy's back. Oh, that's right. He was going to transfer, but he decided to stay. Or, oh, this guy left. So I'm definitely getting back into the swing of that. And usually when I hit send on that, I'm fully ready for the season to start. I haven't hit send on it yet. I'm going to do that this weekend. But once that happens, I'll be fully ready to go. And like you said, with the fans being back, that's going to be awesome. It felt weird to see, a guy score 80-yard touchdown or you get a pick six or it's a big hit and there was just no reaction. Just, you'd hear a couple woos from teammates, but you didn't hear the 90,000, 100,000 people screaming for a cool event. So I'll be definitely happy to have that back.
Yeah, the content game suffered too. Good chunk of our output on Saturdays is fans acting wild and out. So that'll be good to have back. Are you going to get to any games this year? I know we were very busy on weekends, but I don't know if there's any homecoming or anything you try and get away for one Saturday a year. What's good with that?
So Michigan State's at Northwestern Friday night on September 3rd. So I'm going to try to get to that. It's the day before the first full football Saturday. So I've been debating it back and forth in terms of if I should go. I haven't seen a regular season game of theirs in years. So I'm probably going to pull the trigger. I haven't yet. I probably should. And probably just get a couple tickets, take the wife. It'll be should be a nice evening right there on the lake. So
yeah. Yeah, we could Uber up there together. I didn't even know about that game on the schedule. I haven't looked too closely yet, but I might try and get up there for that. It's fun going to like those Friday night games at Northwestern. I think I went to the Ohio State one a few years back, but that'll be a cool opportunity, like you said, to see your guys play in the regular season. You know, I'm sure it just got old watching them in Cotton Bowls and Big Ten championships and stuff.
No, not at all. But I just haven't seen them. You know, I think the last time I actually did see them in person was the Alabama situation in the playoffs, and so I haven't seen them.
Is that the Cotton Bowl?
Yeah.
That's what I
So
thought.
I haven't seen them since. Obviously, that did not go well. But you know, just with our jobs, it's kind of hard to see them, you know, just on a regular basis or just a random, you know, day. And so, if I have the chance to do it, I probably should take advantage.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try and catch the Illinois-Nebraska game. It's just kind of too convenient, you know,
Right.
being the only game that day. So we don't need a ton of support in Chicago, I think. So that'll be a fun one. Try and get down there. Excited to see what the vibe is like after a year off. So TBD on that one. But H, we've got a little more football talk coming up because there was some news this week with Ohio State quarterback commit Quinn Ewers saying he's going to reclassify, join Ohio State a year early. To be honest, like I've kind of backed off following recruiting since I was in college. You know, it's just a lot to take in and monitor. So I wasn't really aware of this situation until it popped up. That makes me a bad BTN employee, so be it. But the hair caught my attention. You know, he's got a pretty epic mullet, puts Mike Gundy to shame. And sounds like he's going to be in that quarterback room this year, right? Can you fill me in on the situation? Saw he's joining the squad this season.
Yeah, it's weird because there was supposed to be a 3-man race for that QB job to replace Justin Fields. And no one really knew who it was going to be, but it was a whole bunch of young, talented guys. And now you add, you know, the number one guy in the 22 class who decided to reclassify and join Ohio State this fall. And I think it's really interesting to see the fact that they have so many 4- and 5-star guys battling for one spot. And I just don't remember, I don't think it's ever happened, but normally you see guys early enroll, so they'll graduate in December, join the team in January, go through all the conditioning stuff, get to know the playbook, but you never see it a full year in advance. You see it in basketball sometimes, a guy will reclassify, but you don't see it in football. And I know just for me, I couldn't imagine skipping a whole year of high school, or maybe a semester, but not a whole year. And so the fact that he's willing to do that, you know, I think, you know, kind of goes to show how good he is, how competitive he is. And I think NIL has is a big reason for it as well. The fact that he can wind up making money, you know, based off of his talent, based off his look, based off of the school he went to. You know, we'll see, you know, how, you know, him entering that room and that competition affects everybody else. I would think CJ Stroud still has the upper hand, considering he's, you know, coming in, you know, really fresh, but, you know, it'll be something to look for sure. And then you wonder if that'll set off, you know, a chain reaction of other guys doing it in the future.
Yeah, geez, we didn't even think about or bring up NIL. I didn't even have it written down because like it's been beaten to death, I feel like, as far as a headline goes. And to be honest, it's like not that intriguing of a topic for me. Like I'm happy that the players got the bag. I always have kind of advocated for that. But like for me, when it was just dissected so much a month ago or whenever that I think it was July 1st when those laws went into effect, I was just like, all right, tired of hearing about it. Like just let the players get their money and let's keep it moving. Obviously when it factors into a storyline or, you know, Nick Saban says like our backup's making $1 million or something like that, you know, it's relevant, but I don't think we need to rehearse the NIL news, but in this situation, yeah, it probably definitely played a factor into it. And I was going to ask, I mean, it seems like what also could have maybe been a factor in the decision is just that uncertainty, right? Like Fields is gone, kind of an open competition. You mentioned CJ Stroud's name. That was the name that I was familiar with going into the season. Just kind of figured that he would ultimately win the job. Like, does Ewers have a chance to play, do you think? I don't know, you know, how much tape you've watched in this guy or like how, you know, unprecedented this would be for a 17, 18-year-old to come in. You mentioned with no spring workouts, nothing like that with the squad. So, I don't know. What do you think? Is it possible?
I mean, I'd be really surprised. It's just so unprecedented. It's hard to say. And then you just wonder,
right, about college football. It's like not it just isn't done usually.
Right. And I just think it's so interesting because you already have a situation now where people are using the transfer portal constantly, right? And so you wonder if a guy who was a 4 or 5 star, he loses the job to a guy who's a freshman or a sophomore. Does he want to sit 2 or 3 years, or does he just go in the portal? And you wonder with a guy like him, does he, say he doesn't win the job, say it's CJ Stroud or Jack Miller, it's a freshman that wins the job essentially. Does he want to wait 2 to 3 years, or can he just transfer somewhere else and play right away? Like, the fact that he's willing to do this now, I think means he's really confident in his ability, in addition to the NIL. And so I'm just really curious to see how this is going to play out because, I would think if he could have waited a year, kind of gets a better understanding of the landscape, maybe he enrolls early, kind of gets a jump for 2022. But to do it now, it's wow.
I mean, Tate Martell is already off the market. Sorry, Buckeyes fans. I know they really want him back. All right. Before we get to my favorite topic, Big Ten NBA crossover with the draft wrapping up a week ago. Got to give you the opportunity to bring up any Big Ten football headlines I might have missed or anything you're looking forward to. I feel like we'll do at least another episode before the season so we can actually give some preview thoughts and all that. But is there anything I'm glossing over? Surprise, surprise, we talked Ohio State off the top, but anything else throughout the league?
I think, we've kind of hit on the big stuff. We've talked, the football playoff proposal. We've talked a little bit about NIL, which I think is awesome and hilarious how people are getting these deals. And
there's some doozies out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to give a shout out to a Michigan State podcast. As soon as it went live, they immediately just tried to seek out guys on the team and just pay them just to say that they paid them to listen to their podcast. And it was basically stuff like, hey, you should listen to, the Locked On podcast. I know I haven't listened to it, but I'm sure it can't be awful. Like stuff like that. And they would, pay the kicker or an incoming freshman to do that stuff. So just seeing stuff like that and guys getting money just off of that, I think is awesome. But overall, I do think, I know we talked about the calendar kind of opening back up, but at the same time, some cities and some states are starting to put some mandates back in because of COVID and the variant that's coming. And I know at a certain point, I think Kevin Warren talked about this at Media Day, what the COVID protocols could be for 2021 if guys, wind up, catching it again, if guys aren't vaccinated. And I'll kind of they haven't come out with the protocol yet in terms of if there are going to be any forfeits or if there's going to be any contact tracing and things like that. I know the NFL is having some issues with that. So I think by the time we do this again, we might have a clearer picture of what that might look like. I think it'd be really, really interesting if you get, Wisconsin, Iowa or something, or, Nebraska, Iowa, whatever the case is. And a team has to forfeit the game because of, COVID. We didn't have that last year. So I'll be curious to see what that's like this year, especially since it seems like the Big Ten is kind of allowing schools and states to do their own thing. And there hasn't been one universal protocol like it was a year ago.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like going into the summer that this was all going to be behind us. Unfortunately, not the case just with the trends country. Hopefully, obviously no disruptions and we can all keep the communities safe that our teams play in. So hoping for the best on that front. And, you talked about NIL again as we shift to our other topic here. And it was a big factor in the decision, I believe, for at least some of our guys in the Big Ten to decide whether to stay in the NBA draft or come back to school. I'm just going to rattle off some names of prominent guys who came back to play. And I think college basketball is in a really great spot. A lot of dudes across the country came back. Prominent March guys. You got your Johnny Juzang. You got, why am I blanking on? Oh, Timmy from Gonzaga. He's back. Big time Final Four names. And then in our league, you got Hunter Dickinson, Travion Williams, Geo Baker, EJ Liddell all coming back. And then Kofi was the guy from Illinois who I think utilized NIL the most publicly. At least, that was kind of the theory as to why he put his name in the transfer portal. gave me a heart attack for a couple weeks there when he was flirting with Kentucky a little bit, but ended up ultimately back at Illinois. And I get like that decision. I think I was trying to explain to people. Some people were like, "Are Illinois fans like going to welcome Kofi back?" I'm like, "Are you serious? Yeah, they're going to welcome him back. Like the second team All-American, massive dude who averaged damn near 20 and 10 last year. Of course they're going to welcome him back." So that's not even a question. And I understand why he put his name in the transfer portal if he wanted to maximize his NIL value. It was right around the day when he had to officially withdraw his name. And since he made that decision, it seems like pretty late in the process. He didn't really have time to maybe field some offers to be at Illinois if he was going to stay there from whoever wanted to pay him, as a fan or donor or whatever to endorse their products. So I'm sure, maybe that had something to do with it. And then once he kind of felt out the process of, okay, if I went here, this could factor into my decision, or if I stay, this could factor into my decision to stay. He ultimately ended up staying. So I don't know how you felt about that, but it was a big headline, I think, throughout college basketball. Especially, I had to bring it up because I feel like I was checking every day to see what he was going to do.
Yeah, no, I definitely was surprised that. Well, I wasn't surprised he declared for the draft, but then when I heard he was in the portal, I thought that was weird. And then when he wound up doing all that just to go back to Illinois, I thought it was weird, but it made the most sense. Like, I didn't think it made sense for him to go anywhere else. He was already established with the Illini, had a great year there. He'll be featured even more this year. So I think it's definitely good for the league and good for Illinois that he stayed. I thought the whole saga was weird just from an outsider perspective. I had no idea of what was going on behind the scenes. Just kind of seeing it from afar, I was kind of like, he did all that just to stay. It's like, okay, but I think it's a win-win for everybody involved.
Well, if you look at it like from kind of how NBA players do it, this kind of comparison just came to me. Like, I kind of view it as like Chris Paul opting out of his existing, option, his $44 million option, to then renegotiate a $120 million deal like he did for a few more years. Like, it just seems like, an opportunity to maybe leverage your time on campus now that NIL is in play, and maybe make the incentive a little more strong for the surrounding area to want to keep you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that. I can certainly see that. And I think in the case of like a Hunter Dickinson, I know he mentioned NIL was a big reason why he stayed. EJ Liddell as well. And I think in the case of Dickinson, since he was a freshman, he didn't get the full experience because of COVID. So like, he didn't get to play in front of fans. He wasn't out, after a huge game as an All-American, getting all the love on campus. Like, he didn't get that kind of stuff. And I know that was part of the reason why he said he wanted to come back. Obviously I know EJ Liddell's been in school for a while, but he hasn't been in school with fans as the man. And so I'd be curious to see what that's like in Columbus. He leads them, big game over Michigan or whatever, or Wisconsin, Michigan State, whoever it winds up being. And, to go be celebrated, to go get, some kind of deal from a Columbus, whoever, I think, the fact that you can make money now, like, you don't have to go to the draft and, hope that you get picked and latch onto a team and try to get a two-way deal or something like that. If you don't get drafted, like, you can just be the man on campus and get paid that way. I think it's awesome.
You bring up Dickinson, and I think it was just yesterday that he was in, I don't know if it was like a clubhouse type deal or some sort of audio chat room with, I think it was Ant Wright. And he said something about how no one likes Illinois fans. And I just like how, now there's a few villains emerging, I think, just in the Big Ten. And I use that term, endearingly, because I think it's good for the rivalries, right? Like, we had Jordan Bohannon, who's also back, getting in some snipes on Twitter last year. And then Dickinson as well, especially when him and Morcell were going back and forth. It seems like Dickinson just doesn't care. Like, he's like the heel and leans into that role. I don't know your thoughts on that, but I think it's always good when there is, some in-conference animosity between the players, as long as it remains good-spirited.
Yeah, I like heels who purposely want to be heels. Like, I don't like guys who think I'm a good guy, I don't know why people don't like me, and like, you do stuff where people don't like you. Like, I enjoy, like, I enjoy the guys who play into being the heel. Look, I'm the guy. I love shutting you up, but it's all on the court. It's all fun. We talk a little trash on Twitter, but it's, nothing crazy, nothing that steps over the line. Like, I think that's fun. And like, I got reminded of that. Obviously it's, different. Those NBA, like Trae Young played into that brilliantly throughout the playoffs, and it made it even more fun as he, beat the Knicks and like beat Philly, and people hated him, and he just played into it, take a bow after, finishing the team off. Like, that stuff's fun. And like, I'm glad we're getting some of that in this league.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I wish Marcel would have stayed to kind of continue that rivalry, because they were really, they're really going at it on Twitter after that Big Ten tournament. And you're right. Trae Young is refreshing, a breath of fresh air. Because like, one of the reasons I've soured on KD, just personality wise, because the dude can't take a joke. He's just like sensitive about everything. And I like when guys are able to remember the fun side of sports and play into that rivalry, lean into it a little bit. So it's good Dickinson's back. It's good for the league. Good Kofi's back. Travion, all these guys, EJ. I want to list off the names who are going elsewhere, like Morcell, like Wiggins from Maryland, got drafted. Wieskamp got drafted as well. Dwayne Washington, Aaron Henry did not get drafted, but they'll get a shot, I'm sure, in Summer League. I don't have the teams in front of me where they're at right now, but I don't know. Any of those surprise you? Any of the draft scenarios surprise you? There was one scenario that really surprised me in the NBA draft because it was a name that was not on my radar at all. I don't know if you were on the same page there, but any surprises that jump out as far as guys leaving early for the league?
I was surprised to see Delano Banton get picked for Nebraska. Yes. Like when you watch him play, you're like, okay, he's got some game. Like, he's, tall, lanky, can handle a little bit, but I didn't see him as like an NBA player per se, but kudos to him, for getting drafted, and hopefully he can wind up making the Raptors and, having a great career. I was a little surprised to see Aaron Henry not get drafted. I thought he'd be like a early to mid second round pick, and he didn't wind up getting picked at all. I thought that was interesting. But I know he got a two-way in Philly, so I hope that works out for him. I think that's a good fit. Obviously they need a guy who can, play some defense, kind of be a jack of all trades guy, and I think he can be that. And I saw Aaron Wiggins got picked by the Thunder. Don't know if he sticks there or not, but I was looking, and it's the fourth straight year Maryland's had a guy selected in the draft, which is the longest streak in the league right now. So, kudos to Maryland for continually putting out pros, and shout out to Iowa for getting two guys picked. It's been a long time since that's happened. And some Pistons love. I'm a homer, so I had to show a little love, a little Big Ten flavor in the second round with Isaiah Livers and Luka going there. I wonder if our old colleague John Beilein had anything to do with that or not. But he's doing player development with them now, so hopefully those two can stick.
They're boys too. Have you seen? I don't know if you saw this, but we had Andy Katz do an interview with those two side by side yesterday, and we shared it. And they're just, it's like a bromance going on. They're dapping each other up. Arms around each other. It's like they never had any heated competitions on the court. They're just totally leaning into the Big Ten buddies angle here as teammates on the Pistons,
which is awesome. I didn't know much about Luka like off the court or anything, but like from what I can recall, like he just always seemed like a good dude in interviews, and like he seemed pretty humble and stuff. Like I know on the court, he's flexing and he's pumping his chest, but like, look, you're National Player of the Year, then you can be allowed to do that. But just from everything I can recall about Livers, just being growing up in Michigan, like everybody said like he was a really, really good dude. And so it's not surprising that, that's carried over. And, I'm sure he's had many talks, with Luka as they battled for 4 years. So, hopefully they can both stick.
Yeah, I was surprised only one Big Ten player went in the first round. And I was surprised with Banton as well, like little inside the process behind the scenes here. Last few NBA drafts, pretty much as I've worked here, we'll try and do a little shout out, a little content package for each player that gets drafted, tag their new teams, all that, give the new fan bases a chance to see some highlights. And so we had stuff ready for like 5 or 6 of these guys who we thought would get drafted. when they called Banton's name, I was like, oh no, what do we got on Delano Banton here? What's going on? I was like, wait a minute, Delano Banton. And obviously I remember him and he was a good player. And like you said, a lot of upside, but we had nothing prepared for him to go out on social media. And then it turns out he's the one who probably has the most sauce now and most clout because he's posing with Drake. Drake puts him on his Instagram story, scratches out the Adidas on his Nebraska jersey because he's a Nike guy. Poses with him in Toronto. So they drafted the Toronto Sun. And I've probably been waiting my whole career for a Drake Big Ten crossover in any kind, right? Like we haven't had anything where he's doing layup lines with Kentucky and all that. Any of these memes where Drake ends up crossing over in the sports world. So it hit me at the most unexpected time. And all of a sudden we got Drizzy shouting out Big Ten players and I wasn't even expecting him to go. So it was just a lot of emotions and a whirlwind for me when this man got drafted number 46 overall.
Yeah, that definitely surprised me. Like if you would have asked me if he would have gotten drafted before Luka Garza, I definitely would not have pegged that. But again, shout out to him. Toronto's son going home, so get to hang out with Drake full time now. Since he's with the Raptors, so shout out to him. Wish him the best going forward.
And we have not brought up the biggest story, at least personally for me, draft night. Io slipping out of the first round, but it all works out. I kept saying as they got in the 30s, I'm like, all right, the Knicks have already passed on him. The Thunder have passed on him a couple of times. The Bulls are sitting there at 38. And, if they pass on him at 38, I don't know if I'll be able to be a Bulls fan. Like, that's a little hyperbole, but, I am a Bulls fan. They haven't given me many reasons to watch over the last few years, ever since kind of the D Rose era, even the Jimmy Butler era. It all kind of fell apart and kind of followed them from afar. I'm all the way back in on the Bulls now. I can't believe that in the span of 3 months that I watched Big Ten stars slip to my favorite Chicago teams, right? Watching the NFL draft as we get to pick 7, pick 8, pick 9. I'm like, maybe Justin Fields is going to be there at 11. Same thing in the 30s with the Bulls. Maybe Io is going to be there. And then the fact that they did the right thing and took those players, it's like, a complete 180. Because for a while for me, like the Chicago team that was doing the right thing on the field was the Cubs. The same week they're disintegrating, trading everybody. I now have Justin Fields to look forward to and the Bears, and Io to look forward to on the Bulls, and the Bulls adding actually some real free agents this year. So that was just wild to me, and just the homecoming story, the kind of storybook ending to his Illinois career there was overall just a really heartwarming story. Great PR for U of I too, to be really, really embedded now in the Chicago market. Like the Bulls don't really have U of I connections outside of Kendall Gill, so it was awesome.
Yeah, I definitely thought about a lot of Illinois people once that happened. I was talking with my buddy who used to work at Big Ten, and obviously he's a huge Bulls fan. So he's like, "Oh man, like Io falling, like that's a cool story. Like how about that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's a great landing spot for him. If you're not gonna get drafted in the first round, you at least get drafted by the hometown team. So you know the area, the facilities, all that kind of stuff, and like your family can watch you play now." Like just drive up and it's great, So I was really happy for him. That's not a bad consolation prize at all to wind up playing for your hometown team.
Yeah, you talked about Iowa. Been a while since they have had 2 guys drafted. I know it had been, I think since 2015 since they had 1 guy drafted. So good to see Iowa and Illinois get back on the draft board there. At least from my Twitter feed, I think Illinois fans and media need a little more practice at watching the NBA draft and not freaking out. Not all media, but I just saw a lot of people watching what was probably their first NBA draft in a while. They're like, how can so-and-so be slipping? I'm sure, maybe some Iowa fans felt the same way about Garza and Wieskamp, but it's like, this is the NBA draft. It's probably 60% upside they're drafting on. Relax. Your favorite player is not always going to go high in the draft. He's going to get a chance to prove it on the court. And then it all worked out when Iowa went to the Bulls and the tenor on Twitter changed completely positive. So it's just like, maybe this will come with more success and more guys getting drafted, but chill out and just let the process play out.
See, I didn't know that was happening. I guess
it was a mess.
That would have been fun to see looking back, but I guess I'm used to like Michigan State guys slipping in the draft, so
Not,
it's just
not the
kind of
brag.
like
We just had so many guys, you know.
no, just like you get a first team All American, all time assist leader. He goes in the 50s, it catches, and like seeing Draymond go 35th and have the career he's had and stuff like that. So like I know for whatever reason, like guys just don't. Not all of them, obviously, but like I'm kind of used to guys who are really good at Michigan State not get drafted probably where they should. Guys who stay for longer, and just that stigma. If you stay 3 or 4 years, something must be wrong with you. So you might have your upside might be limited. Like you kind of are who you are at 21 or 22, which is ridiculous, but that's kind of the way it's been. And so hopefully guys like Luka and Io and Wieskamp and Wiggins, guys who stayed 3 or 4 years, can prove those guys wrong.
All right, we're gonna close the loop now. Before we wrap up, H, we got to bring up one more potential reclassifying situation here. And again, this is the game that Big Ten fans got to play when they got the big boys coming in the conference, and we need more of this NBA talent potentially in the league. You see guys from other leagues getting drafted. You see us going without a title since 2000. What's the deal with Amani Bates, man? Like I just saw a headline yesterday that MSU's back in the mix. I know he was committed there for a while. There's a lot of inside stuff going on. What are you hearing on the ground? Like, because that would be amazing if he spent his 1 year in East Lansing.
Yeah, this whole thing's weird because I had mentally just checked out on the Bates thing after. Well, even before he decommitted, it kind of sounded like it was heading that way. And so I'm like, okay, well, whatever. Best of luck to him in the G League. And so then I hear, it's down to, Memphis, or he's going to reclassify, so he'll be on campus this fall if he decides to go to college. And it's between Memphis, Oregon, and Michigan State if he does, or he could still go to the G League, which I think he'll probably still wind up doing. But I thought it was weird to commit as early as he did. And I was like, that's really weird. Like, I don't know why he would do that. And then to wind up decommitting only to put Michigan State back in your top three. The whole process is really strange to me. There's all kind of rumors out there in terms of, he and Izzo talked and, kind of, patched some things up, and there's a chance that he can come. But then there's the thing with him and I think the other top player in the class both potentially announcing and playing together at Memphis. And so there's a lot of rumors out there right now. But I think with NIL passing, like, I think he has a chance to make a ton of money in college. Just the fact that he would be on TV so much, no matter what school he goes to. Like if he went to Memphis and he's under Penny, like I'm sure they would, even though they're in the American, like they would get, a ridiculous non-conference schedule and be on TV all the time. Obviously, if he's at Michigan State, they play a ridiculous schedule every year, and he'll be, showcased for sure with a pretty young team. So, it'd be interesting to see kind of where he winds up. I definitely was checked out mentally, but I guess I have to kind of read up on some more rumors and see if there's any truth to them.
Yeah, and that whole explanation you just gave is exactly why, I try to stay away from recruiting as much as possible. And especially now with the transfer portal stuff, like that's its own thing and its own recruiting saga. And I used to write about it in college, and it was just like impossible to keep up with. You can't keep up with the whims of teenagers, especially when I didn't really give context to the question, but Amani Bates is like your Kevin Durant prodigy, guy who's going to be one and done for sure, can go anywhere, has the added layers of, he went to his own like prep school, his own school that was like built around him. There's a whole like lot of layers here. So just that whole landscape, man. Like I just get him on. For me, I'm like to the point. It's like just when they get on campus, then I'll get excited and into it. Like otherwise, I can't get sucked in too deep.
No, I agree. And the thing with Bates too is like he's really young for his grade too. So like there's a chance where if he went to college, he might have to stay for 2 years because he wouldn't be old enough to enter the draft by reclassifying early. So then it's the whole like, would he actually do that, or would like he try to challenge the NBA to change the age limit so he can come in earlier? Like there's a whole lot of layers to this thing. So I'd be curious to see how it turns out. But clearly, you know, classes start, you know, in the next couple months, next month, really. So you figure it's going to have to come quick.
Yep. Good summary for those out there who need their Amani Bates fix. Maybe we'll, you know, who knows? We'll get a surprise, but I'm sure you would not be mad at that.
No, not at all.
All right, H, we've caught up on a lot. You know, we had to catch up on a lot because we were twisted in the wind for a couple of months here with no podcast, but we are back. We'll get this going on a semi-regular basis again. You know, maybe we'll get another sponsor like we have had with our friends at Northwestern SPS. So that'll motivate us. You know, we'll have to do them at that point. So, you know, just throwing that out in the universe, maybe that'll get some sponsorship dollars flowing again. And if not, either way, we're still going to crank these out and still going to talk Big Ten sports. So plenty to talk about coming up. We will keep it rolling. Appreciate you jumping on. Enjoy what's left of your summer, and hopefully we'll get on before we kick off here in 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, definitely good to be back. Looking forward to it. It was funny that we actually decided to do it today because today is officially 8 years since I've been at the network now.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, so it was weird.
Keep clapping.
The fact that I remember the first day was literally, hey, fill out some paperwork and get on the bus. And so it was kind of away you go from there. So I was thrown right into the fire. So the fact that we're talking tour today, we're talking football today, you know, it's kind of a nice reminder of, man, I've been here a long time.
Yeah, happy 8th BTN birthday. I'm coming up on 5, not quite 5, maybe 4.5 in my current role, but I started bottom of the totem pole, and now I'm slightly higher at the bottom. So
you working up, man. You working up for sure.
So 5 years, 8 years, getting old, but it's a lot of fun. We'll keep it rolling, and we'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good, man.
All right, thanks to Harold and Malcolm once again for joining the show. Glad to get back in the swing of things, get back behind the mic, and continue to churn these episodes out after, I believe our last one was end of May, so hopefully everyone had a good summer after that break from podcasting for a while, but we'll get back into it. Hopefully a semi-regular groove here going forward. I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about as hopefully normal season will unfold and don't have to deal with cancellations, empty stadiums, anything like that. Positive vibes only, and we will keep moving into the Big Ten sports calendar. All right, thanks as always for tuning in. If you are not a subscriber, you can subscribe to the show, like and rate and review it on the podcast platforms where the show is found. Talking Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or Google Podcasts as it's now known, Spotify, Podbean, and we are on YouTube as well. You can watch this interview with our this guest, Malcolm, and going forward with future guests on the Big Ten Network YouTube channel. Subscribe to that channel and then find the Take 10 podcast playlist. Super easy and fun to see the guests doing the interviews, in my opinion. So do that if you haven't already. One last shout out to Wes White for stitching the show together this week. And we'll get back to you hopefully real soon here on the Take 10 podcast.